Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. Avalon here, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here and that we can have this little chat together, because this little chat is kind of important to my channel. Now, what I wanted to say was that I have had a rather drastic change in circumstances, and I thought that it would be quite relevant for me to mention these changes in circumstances here on my channel, as they are things that directly impact me and my family, and that will no doubt feature quite highly on my channel as a result, because they are in direct connection with me, with my current lifestyle, and the way that I am choosing to live my life at this moment in time. So let me hit you up with a little backstory. I'll keep it short and sweet. Now, for those of you who didn't know, and some of you may know this already, I lived in the tropics of far north Queensland in Australia. Right up there in the tropics, in the very hot part of Australia, wedged between the Daintree rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. And I have spent most of my time in Australia, in the far north of Australia, in the tropics. Yes, I've travelled around, but that kind of area up there was my home base for quite some time. Probably a good 15, 16, maybe even 20 years of my time here in Australia was spent in the tropics and in the hotter parts of Australia. Now, towards the last probably 3 years of living up there, I got fed up. There's no other way for me to put this. And being entirely honest, I got so fed up. I was so fed up with the heat, like incredible amounts of heat. People talk about hot places, and I've lived in dry, arid, hot places. I've lived in, you know, in parts of the central desert of Australia. I've lived in central Queensland, which is hot but dry. But this heat, oh my God, this heat was all-encompassing. It was smothering. The humidity was through the roof. The kids could not go outside without having hats on their heads and sunscreen lathered all over their bodies. You barely went outside during the day just because the sun and the heat and the humidity just zapped you of your life force. The nicest time of the year up in that tropical part of the world was actually winter, because the temperatures dropped. You could still wear a singlet and flip-flops, or tank tops and flip-flops during winter up there, and go camping and do all those lovely things. The heat was far less, and the creatures, the deadly creatures that like to sort of exist in these places, they would tend to hibernate and disappear, and so you could go out there and enjoy nature. But the winter is so short. You think winter goes for 3 months. It doesn't. It only goes for about 6 weeks up in the tropics. It's so short. It's so short a time. And I just got so fed up. I was so unbelievably fed up. And I was whinging. I reached that point where I just started to really whinge. I whinged to my husband all the time. He's like, oh my God, such a whingy bitch. No, not really, but I became that really like, it's so hard. And it just zaps you of your motivation. And I don't really have to, you know, speak more on it, but you get the gist. I was fed up. And so we decided to make the move from far north of Australia to the far southern part of Australia, in Tasmania's beautiful Huon Valley. That's where I am right now, in Tasmania's beautiful Huon Valley. Now, how this came about was as follows. Shortly after my eldest daughter was born, my husband and I, we invested in land down here, in 28 beautiful acres of land down here, and we always had the intentions of coming down eventually, but the timing had never been quite right. Well, the timing became right. I don't know exactly what it was. It must have been a beautiful cosmic shift, but I was sitting there at the morning breakfast table with my husband. We were talking about coming down for a holiday, a visit, to visit my father who lives down here, and he said, we should move. We should just sell everything and move. And I was so on board with that. I said yes before he had even finished articulating his sentence. I was really, really keen. I was keen. So that's what we did. Sold up our life, packed what we could in our 2 cars, and anything that couldn't fit was cast away, given to people, donated, sold, a mixture of all those things. We donated a lot of stuff. We did. We donated quite a bit of stuff. And then we made the trip down here. We drove down. It took us a couple of weeks to drive down. We took our time. visited friends on the east coast of Australia, and we arrived. We've been here for a couple of weeks now. And so my situation has changed in the fact that here in Tasmania, it's cold. There's actually snow on the mountains. It's a temperate climate. We actually get to see 4 seasons down here, or so I'm told. And I've got a fire going right now, which is something that you would never ever see in Cairns. Itchy nose, sorry. But we are living in a tiny home. In the textbook definition of a tiny home. It's a grounded tiny home. It's not on wheels. But we are living in a tiny home. So there's 5 of us in this tiny home. We live on 28 acres, yes. We are completely and 100% off-grid. We have water tanks. We have electric pumps to pump the water from the water tanks because they're not gravity fed yet. We are planning on gravity feeding. We have solar panels. We're increasing the level of solar panels that we have. Our hot water is through propane or gas hot water, and that's our lifestyle right now. We're in a 7 by 3 meter dwelling, and we have an external structure which part of the structure is 1.5 meters wide by probably 3 meters long, and then this is the sunroom, and then it stretches out to be about 3 by 4, I guess, or 3 by 3 out that way. So you've got a nice little square, sort of like goes narrow and then bursts out into a square. I'll show you one day when we've done what we can with our belongings. Right now, this place is so small that what we bought in our cars, in 2 cars, cannot properly fit in this space. And so I'm not set up, I don't have a sacred space, internal sacred space per se, or a reading space for that matter. And that's totally okay, I'm just sort of going with it for the time being. All of my decks, all my witchy ephemera, they are in boxes right now, and I'm not in a super hurry to unbox them until I've got somewhere where I can, you know, place them and leave them there. So, you know, I'm just sitting here writing, being creative and doing those kinds of things. I'm still working really hard on the Bonestone deck. I've started Patreon. I'm still creating content for YouTube in smaller doses, and I'm doing that sort of stuff. But now I'm living off-grid. This is a very relevant part of my life. I have to chop my own wood. I use a compost toilet. I don't have a fridge. I actually leave my groceries outside. It's cold enough that my cheeses and my milks and things like that, they can just sit outside and they stay cold. And I put them in a little cooler bag just so that no animals can get to it. But that's basically it. And we have very limited, you know, we have very limited luxuries here, but it's so cozy and comfortable nonetheless. I still have hot water. I have a cozy place to sleep. I have a beautiful Essie wooden stove that I can cook on, and I can also heat the house with. The house is a nice toasty, let's have a look, 24 degrees, and outside, and that's Celsius, and outside would be 5 degrees Celsius right now. We're all bunched up in a little room sleeping, which is totally fine as well. And the kids don't seem to be bothered by any noise if we might be, you know, on an occasion watching a movie in the middle of, you know, at about 7 o'clock at night. They just fall asleep, and we get to, you know, just relax a little bit. Everything seems to be flowing really nicely, and there's just, you know, a few things that we need to adjust to. So I chop wood and kindling and stuff like that. As it turns out, I'm quite a lover of axes. I don't know what it is. I just love working with an axe. My husband saw me struggling with my father's ginormous, very heavy axe, so he went out and he got me a smaller axe, and I'm unstoppable now. I am unstoppable. And, you know, just getting out there and doing the firewood thing is really like, oh my God, this is why I'm doing this. Like, just being out there and chopping wood and breathing in that fresh air. It's just so good for my soul. I can't tell you. I feel amazing when I walk in. I'm like, fresh air, very little noise pollution. It's amazing. It's amazing. The weather is weird. I'm not used to this weather. It's so weird to me. Like, where I come from, the weather is predictable. It's going to be hot, or it's going to be hot and raining, or it's going to be hot. Pretty much the only settings. And down here it's sunshine, and then it's overcast, and then it's raining, and then the sun comes down and it's raining, but then it's overcast and really blowy, but then 10 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour later the sun's out and the rain stops, and just the weather changes. You see these 4 seasonal events in one day, and I find it utterly fascinating because it's something that I'm so not used to. I'm not used to these beautiful big trees, these hardwood trees, these temperate climate botanicals all around me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. I took the kids up to the snow on the weekend. That's the first time that they've ever seen snow. They were hysterical. Oh my gosh. I did film a video of that. It is going to go live on Apple Tree in the start of August. But, oh my God, that was so funny. And it was just, we were highly unequipped for the weather. But what are you going to do? Living and learning over here, because we're adjusting as well. My husband grew up in New South Wales, and so he's a little bit more used to the cold weather, and he did a bit of traveling, you know, throughout his years to Austria, because his bestie's an Austrian, used to be a sort of professional snowboarder, so they, you know, they did that thing. But he can do well in either climate really, whereas I seemed to struggle a lot in the heat, and yet I spent so much time in the heat. And then I've come down here for a couple of weeks and I've unlocked vast potential, vast creative potential. I have been so creative since I've been down here. It's ridiculous. And I'm perfectly content to stay in this tiny little dwelling and, you know, do things the way that I need to do them now and just acclimate to this new lifestyle. Now, one of the things that I have had to do in order to acclimate to this new lifestyle that we are all living right now is to go zero waste. Now, I know that zero waste is quite the trend thing, and what a beautiful trend too, by the way, but it is a bit of a trend thing, and we're just in the middle of zero waste or plastic free July, which is a zero waste movement, and plastic free July is a big thing. But because we are off grid, we don't get any rubbish collection, and here in Australia it costs money to dispose of your rubbish, so minimizing our rubbish was essential. Now we have compost bins here, so I utilize the compost bins for all of our food scraps, and we try to bring in as little plastic, and anything that we do bring in we can recycle, because the recycling here at our local recycling centre is free. You can recycle cardboard, paper, things like that, and aluminum tins and recyclable plastic bottles. Now, I'm not down with using plastic. I think it's horrendous, but that's just me. My husband buys the odd drink in a recyclable plastic container. I scowl at him. It seems to be like a little ritual. And then he's like, it's totally recyclable. And I'm like, anyway, but he's been really good with it, and we're both on the same page. I'm a little bit more militant about it than he is. He's a little bit more laxy-daisy, but we are going zero waste, and I have gone full on into the zero waste. We put in a massive order at a place called Source Bulk Foods, like a massive order, probably spent about $600 or $700 because we came down here with no food whatsoever, and I didn't want to keep running to the supermarket because you can't really get anything that's unpackaged aside from your fruit and vegetables. So we wanted to go and get as much as we could, and so we went and just to set ourselves up. We've since then found a few places here local to us that we can go and take our containers to fill up, so that's been really great. But this Source Bulk food order that we did really set us up with all of our mueslis and our, you know, our oats and nuts and grains and legumes and things like that. Lots of flours, and we did you know, bread mixes, all organic and just lovely. And so we've been doing that and haven't really had to go out and buy anything too major. We can't seem to find milk in, you know, outside of a plastic container, so we've converted to cream that we can buy in cartons that are fully recyclable, and so we've been doing a little bit of that. On top of that, I've been trying to make my own things a lot. I ran out of my Lush deodorant bar, which I loved. Had such a lovely fragrance. Weird to use, but I loved it. And I went and I made my own. I made 2 varieties because like I said, I've been creative, and I got a little too creative with the first one and it didn't work out quite well. And so I made a second one following the instructions that I found on a blog, like perfectly. And then I didn't want to waste what I had created the first time, so I tweaked it and I tweaked it, and it turned out to be amazing. It's so amazing, but I've got so much of it now that it's filling one of our repurposed, I think it's a peanut butter jar, a glass peanut butter jar with a lid, and then some in another jar. Whereas the good mix, the good deodorant mix, well, that's still perfectly usable, but it doesn't have the shea butter or the bentonite clay that I put in the first one, and so I'm favouring one over the other. But I've now got so much deodorant. I've got so much deodorant, and good quality deodorant. Deodorant that I can put on, and 24 hours later, I still smell good. And it's amazing. So, and it's nourishing, and it's non-toxic, and it's really lovely for the skin, and that's, you know, that's just wonderful. So I've been trying to do a lot of that, and going unpackaged for everything, and, you know, really looking at how I can repurpose items in my kitchen and throughout my home, my tiny home now. And we're just in that phase right now. So, I mean, we've still got a long way to go with this, because there's a lot of cleaning up that needs to happen, because my father and my uncle retired down to this block of land about 6 years ago, so we're not here by ourselves. And they created this structure that I'm living in right now. And then they created another structure. One moved that way, the other one moved this way. My father lives in a tiny home, which is a converted shipping container, which is all the rage, and he fitted it out himself. My father made this entire house. Look at these fittings, look at these doors. He made it. He made it. He's incredible. Did all the wiring in it, and he's an electrical technician, and he knows about his engineering, and he's a really smart little cookie, that one. And he built this entire place. And then it was empty because my uncle went and built another little dwelling up there, and my father decided on a shipping container where he could just be totally cozy. And this place was vacant, so we were able to come straight into it. It was already here for us. Also already here for us was a mountain of firewood, like a mountain of firewood. My uncle and my father had been regularly going out to within our 28 acres and just finding fallen trees, chopping them up, storing them. They've been doing that for years and years and years now. So there's a mountain of firewood. And I chop kindling, and I chop the larger pieces of firewood that won't fit into my little Essie stove. And when I say Essie stove, but I'm going like this, it's because it's right there. Right there. And I'm that close because everything's like, whoo. But I'm really, really loving it here, and I'm living this zero waste lifestyle. I'm connecting with other zero wasters here, and I'd like to talk a little bit about zero waste on my channel and the things that I have done to go zero waste. And, you know, living in a tiny home and living off-grid, these are things that will impact my channel because they impact me as a person. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. I'm still going strong with my tarot, and I'm just activated in my witchcraft. One of my main totem animals lives here and visits me every day. Freaking amazeballs. And right now we're in the winter, but come summertime, I'm told that we have an issue with jack jumper ants, which are nasty creatures, and also venomous snakes. So all challenges that are yet to make contact with me. So I'm in this process of learning and discovery and adventure and adjustment. This is something that I have been wanting to do for the longest time. I'm a real earth baby at heart, and I've always wanted to be off-grid. I've always wanted to be self-sufficient and reliant. I've always wanted to be quite kind on the earth, and now I get the opportunity to do that. And it's amazing. It's amazing not to actually be plugged into the grid at all, and yet to have enough power to power up my devices and the water pump, and that's all we really need at this moment in time. and it's just been so nice. The water out here, oh my gosh, I can't finish this vlog without talking about the water. The water. We have 3 water tanks here right now, and we're looking to get 1 or 2 other big ones. And the drinking water tank, it's like the temperature of the water is below 0. It's so cold. Like, it's so cold. This water is so cold and so fresh. And it's pure rainwater, and it's lovely. And that's our main source of drinking water, our bathing water, our dishwashing water. It all comes from the rain, right? But the water is so good. It's so fresh. We do have a ceramic urn filter, just to be on the safe side. It's something that we brought down with us, and it was quite costly to us, and we loved it. And it was very necessary for the water up in Cairns, but you know, I guess it's still necessary here because the water comes down into our drinking container or our drinking tank, and there is a fine filter on it, but it's not ultra fine, so debris still comes through, and just putting it through that secondary source of filtering is really good, and it creates the nicest of water. Oh my gosh, it's water to die for. So pure, so cold, so clean, so fresh, and just loving it. It's one of the highlights. It's one of the highlights of this place, is to have such fresh air, such fresh produce. That's another thing. This area that I'm living in right now is full of little farms and full of this beautiful fresh produce. And they have regular markets of a weekend that alternate, and you can just go and top up your food stores. So as you can see, a lot has been going on. So much so that I have been pretty absent here and there. I have been putting out a lot of stuff, but I've been doing so in so many different platforms that my presence hasn't been felt squarely in one place only, as it usually does. So I was always here on YouTube. I've got heaps and heaps of content on YouTube. But you know, one of the things that people have asked me since, you know, especially since I joined Patreon, I joined Patreon, like, you know, I was called the names. I was called the names for going onto Patreon. And I found that really quite baffling, because I do a lot, you know, I produce a lot, I create a lot, and especially on Patreon, what I'm doing on YouTube is totally different to what I'm doing on Patreon. Yes, I'm putting out my vlogs and everything, but I'm also putting out, you know, ritual sheets and tarot spreads and, you know, instructional videos and family vlogs, things that I don't feel comfortable putting up here on YouTube. But another aspect of that is that, well, my husband is about to quit his job completely. And what I do is now going to be what sustains us until he decides what he wants to do next. And I'm perfectly comfortable with that, because without those overheads of electricity and, you know, and all the rates associated to owning a home, which we did and we've just sold, you know, without all those overheads, those big debts, we can afford to be a little bit more freer. We can afford to be a bit more frugal. And for me, it's never been about money. For me, I've never felt like I needed oodles and oodles of money to be happy. I just wanted to be able to nourish myself, nourish my family, and, you know, live a happy life where I'm not encumbered by things. And debt is one of those big things that I was encumbered by. Well, we were as a family, as is the case for many, many other families. So moving off grid was designed to help minimize our debts, was designed to help us to connect more with nature, to live a much more frugal, healthy, happy, family-oriented life. So I went to Patreon because I thought, well, I actually do need the income now. What I've been doing on YouTube doesn't provide me with income. So I wanted to see if I could turn that into a little bit of a financial support system for my family. And that is why I made the move over to Patreon. And then I get harassed about it, which is another reason why I wasn't very keen on posting a lot on YouTube, because people on YouTube can be freaking nasty. Thankfully for me, though, I have a beautiful community. Thank you to those beautiful people who have, you know, always given me that beautiful kindness and supportive, you know, comments, and just who appreciate what I do and who have always shown me so much love and so much, you know, just beautiful, delicious community support and magic. So I'm not leaving YouTube, but I'm portioning my time much better, I guess. And I'm looking to create a lot more downtime for myself. Now with my husband about to quit his job completely, I get to spend time with him, time that I never got to spend before. My children, they're having a great time in the little school here. They went to a massive school of 1,300 kids, and now they're in a little school of 65 children. They're calmer, they're more at peace. The community here is more nourishing, it's kinder, it's nicer, it's slower. And I just wanted a little bit of that, because it's very easy to get caught up in that big rat race in the competitive side of living, where you feel like you have to earn heaps of money to be able to afford this lifestyle, that it's just, you get yourself into a really crazy mindset, and that's never been my thing. It's never been my bag. So this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what my family are doing, and I'm still going to be putting great amounts of content out there for for all the little avenues that I'm currently watering, all my little crops, you could say. No, I'm just kidding. All my little social media platforms and that. Nothing's going to get super neglected, but I am going to slow down a little bit and just spend a bit of time with myself, reading books and talking to friends and making new friends, because that's another thing, folks. I left all of my friends. You never really leave your friends, but they're not there for me to just pop around and have a cuppa, or for them to pop around and have a cuppa at my place, which is something that used to happen all the time. And also my coven. I was so involved in my coven for so many years, and that was a sad thing to walk away from. That was one of those situations that I was like, oh my gosh, this is hard. We had a closing ritual, and I bawled my eyes out, because it was such a deeply nourishing circle to belong to, and it was such a huge presence in my life, and that's something that is not here now. And I'm still talking to them almost daily, and I miss them. I miss them so much, but it's time for me to sort of integrate into a new network, and to find a few kindred spirits here where I'm living. I've been so busy though that I haven't really been out in the community all that much, and not too many people actually know that I'm here. Well, at least not to my knowledge. But I've been busy, and I'm writing Bonestone, and I've just finished Tarot Summer School courses, which I've told you all about, which was very time consuming to me because all of the things that were going on at the time. And yeah, I've just been really working at a few different things and keeping myself super busy, and it's been really nice. At the end of the day, it's been really nice, but I am going to have to get out there and actually meet some people soon. I do have friends here in Tasmania already, friends that I've actually travelled with a long time ago, old party friends that I met in my in my travels, that have all settled down and had children, so they're very much in the neck of the, not the neck of the woods, but the headspace that I'm in. Matt, my husband, he's got friends down here as well. They've had, babies since they've been down here. So we do know a few people, and the community is really friendly, and they're very helpful, and they've just been super duper kind, and, and it's lovely. It's been lovely here. We don't regret coming down here at all. But we are going to be setting ourselves up a little bit better. And there's so much going on. Like, there are so many adventures that we are planning on having down here, and so many things that we want to do while we're down here, that I can't wait to show you all. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. I thought that this would be a really good video just to show you where I'm at, in case you started to see new different kind of content pop up. My channel focus isn't necessarily going to shift, it's just going to include a little bit more. And that's because, my life's changed a bit, and, and my channel is a reflection of me and my life. So there you have it. So thanks so much for sitting with me. Much love to you all, and I'm wishing you so much love, luck, peace and joy. If you are the type of individual that would love to support me on Patreon to create more YouTube videos, or just to participate in the learning circles and the beautiful content that I put in there, then I'll leave the link to my Patreon in the description box below. But just know that in whichever way you connect with me, I thoroughly appreciate you. Much love, many blessings.